Welcome to Ren Behind the Practice. I'm Sophie Campisi. I'm a holistic business strategist and startup expert, and I spend a lot of my time in conversation with practitioners, coaches, and healers about the behind the scenes of their businesses. What I started noticing is that some of the most honest, important conversations about building a practice were happening quietly, one-on-one, behind the scenes, and often in isolation. Most practitioners are incredibly skilled at the work they do with their clients, but very few of us were ever taught or trained in how to build a successful startup business. And suddenly we've been left to figure it out on our own. This podcast exists to bring those conversations forward. The dreams, the uncertainty, the highs and lows, the recalibrations, and the messy middle. My hope is that by normalizing these conversations, we can soften the stigma, feel less alone, and start closing the gaps together. Today's guest is Jacqueline Kent. Jacqueline is all about personal growth and sharing her journey of making right feeling and not so good feeling choices. She's also passionate about using quantum human design to guide other multi-passionate and creative women to make the decisions that make the difference in their lives. Jacqueline, it's so great to have you here. Thank you for showing up and having this conversation with me today.
Thanks so much, Sophie. It's really great to be here. I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
Before we look behind the scenes, can you share with us a little bit more about the work that you do?
Yeah, sure. So it's really interesting because I, from a very young age, was always one who was chosen to help people when they got stuck, when there was guidance needed, even being asked by my teachers to be like a mentor to somebody at school who might be struggling when I was about 9 years old. And long story, much shorter. I was really, human design kind of found me at a point where, ironically, I was trying to look for the thing that was going to help me move my business forwards. And I got a lot more than I bargained for. I didn't get the direct answer to my kind of request that I'd put out to the universe. But the way that it arrived in front of me was just so powerful, and it landed in me so much that I just could not look away. I was just captivated by what else might be possible once I made more sense of it and could help others understand it too.
Did you have a career before you started exploring human design?
Yeah, so I've actually been self-employed for 21 years this year. And for the first 15 of those, I worked in the wedding industry. So I'd actually been building a wedding business or trying to. That also had been difficult. Similar things around trying to do all of the things all at once and, juggling everything. And then when COVID happened, I realized that it was finally the universe giving me a green light to put that to bed and focus on what I was really passionate about and what just came so naturally to me. So yeah, the whole entrepreneurship journey has been a very long one so far.
When it comes to your business model now, is the main pillar of your business model one-on-one work?
Yeah, I feel like there's a certain sacredness to it. I often end up in the kind of conversations with people that they weren't even really realizing they needed to have with themselves, never mind opening up in sort of even a small group. So I do some occasional group work, but it's not a focus at the moment. I actually really enjoy the intimacy of one-to-one.
And the people that are your clients now or have been your clients in the past, where have you connected with them, made the initial connections, nurtured the connections before they've become clients?
So my very first clients, even before human design kind of properly landed, were people that I already knew. They were people that were in my world in other walks of life and some of the other things that I do in my spare time, people who knew people I've known for some 25 plus years that just suddenly reappeared and were like, you have the thing that I need. And me going, okay. So almost the less effort I put into finding people, the easier it was, ironically.
So has it stayed that way? Is it still mostly in your personal network, like branching out from there?
Primarily, yes. Funnily enough, some of my more recent clients have been also human design trained practitioners. In the way that we each have our own way of doing things. They've, I guess, seen me as somebody who's taking the lead, and that's not in a deliberate sense, but just feet on the floor, let's go. They're like, I want to go too. And how is that a thing that I've missed? Quite often, I'm finding people are so focused on the learning that the embodiment and the integration gets missed along the way.
Interesting. So are they booking sessions with you to go deeper into their studies, or are they booking sessions or working with you to get personal readings and just hear the way, be with the way that you work with the work?
Yeah, it's very much they have a sense of feeling seen that they don't seem to be getting somewhere else. And it's kind of like, the conversations that we'll have, they're sort of like, I wish I could say this in other circles. And I'm like, but you can, it's just about being a bit braver and a bit bolder. And they're just starting to get comfortable with that piece of it in order that they can then go out and express what they're doing in the world in a more kind of empowered, embodied way. They're just kind of not there yet.
So you're talking more about like they want to be more confident as a human design practitioner working with the work out, or they want to be more bold like in their readings.
It's a little bit of both. It's a confidence piece around feeling scared to almost reveal their gifts to people. Even when people are like, I know that you can help me with this, they're sort of like lacking confidence and lacking not even practice. It's certainly not knowledge. And that's the thing. It's like they've often trained at a higher level than I have, and yet they're just not in. They're not allowing themselves to go to that next bit. So in my reflections back to them, I can say what I see and they'll be like, I didn't realize that about myself. So it's a little bit of both. It's like helping them see the bits of their chart that they know cognitively, but aren't really living out in their world.
If you had to put language to, you said it's like they're coming to me because they're seeking, or I'm giving them something that they're not getting somewhere else. If you had to put language to what is that?
It's permission. It's permission. So I say that I'm known as the permissionista, and that is because I'm about helping those people, whoever they are, give themselves permission to stop holding everything so close to their chest and let themselves be seen, be more expressed, be more honest with themselves, so that the life that they live then is much more in alignment with who they actually are.
I'm familiar, of course, with human design and not so much with quantum, but what is your design?
I am a manifesting generator in human design. Yeah, I'm all about the multi-passionate, juggling all the things, taking shortcuts for things, finding ways to do it that sometimes mean it needs to get redone again before I get it right, refining and sometimes skipping steps completely and not even going back. So
What's your profile? Are the numbers. Is that right?
that's right. Yeah, I'm a 1-3. So I'm,
I think you said five.
yeah,
I'm a 2/4 projector.
truthful.
And so I know most about human design, of course, just through my own chart,
Yeah,
working
of
with
course.
it for so many years. But now that I have children, I'm starting to learn more about other
Mm.
things. And,
Mhm.
as they grow, of course, I look forward to learning more even so. But yeah, I'm a 2/4 projector, splenic authority. Like I fit my pretty much every time I've leaned deeper into my human design, not only do I learn more, I become more effective in my life and my work.
Mm.
Um, Helps me make sense of myself, gives me
Yeah,
permission. I mean, I love that you say that because I do think human design is one of those things that helps, gives us permission, helps give us permission to just be who we be.
that's it. Exactly that. And it's self-compassion. And that's been a theme of my work from way before I discovered human design. It's all been about self-compassion. A lot of my own journey has been self-compassion, forgiveness, letting myself not off the hook, but being more understanding with myself for things that I'd perceived as flaws or faults. And that's a really beautiful gift for anyone to give themselves.
When you look ahead to the next 6 to 12 months, what goals do you have for your work and for your business?
So one of the things that I am working on committing to, and it really is a bit of a work in progress, is working on committing to allowing myself to get really good at selling one specific service and getting better and better at that. because I have this multi-passionate nature, that is really, really hard. So in some senses, that feels like I'm going against the grain, but in other senses, I know that also makes a lot of sense. And there's also a bit for me around allowing myself to be more open in community with the right people in order that we all get to lift each other up. And so I've got a few different things on the boil with that at the moment, which are really exciting and I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, when I work with manifesting generators, when it comes to sounds like what you're already tuning into intuitively, but also you have so much experience in
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship and is teaching them and showing them how to build in a way that shows them that they can have all of the things, but you need to focus on one first
Yeah.
and then go to the next one. It's true. It's like you
Yeah.
can pop. I'm thinking of a client that I had once, who's manifesting generator. It's like, yeah, but I'm a manifesting generator. It's like, yeah, but right, that's not telling you need to do it all at once. Based on
Mm.
my experience, because my partner and I have one son who's a manifesting generator, says, do the thing
Mm-hmm.
till
Mm-hmm.
that's run its course and then do the next
Mm-hmm.
thing.
That's it. Yeah.
It's give yourself permission to
Mm-hmm.
stop doing it when it says this one's done and then do the next one. But based on my understanding of that, it's certainly not do it all at once.
And that's the thing, we very often, and it happened to me just this morning, actually, I had this idea, I was like, oh, and then I was just like, whoa, back a minute, come back to where you were and you can put somewhere safe, be working on it in the background. You don't have to show it all at once. It's not a game of poker where you show your hand, you get to just have that one, it's almost like having one thing on display and yes, still doing the other bits, but not trying to be like the magician tarot card. That's what I'm seeing.
Totally. Yeah. And it's part of why I love working with manifesting generators, obviously with anyone and how I show people how to build businesses effectively. Just it anchors in exactly on that and showing people. Because another thing, manifesting generator or not, obviously I'm a projector. One thing that we all have in common is also being a visionary and having that gift and that skill. First of all, a lot of us don't even realize we're visionaries because it's second nature. So we don't realize we're seers because we've always been seers. So we don't have any comparison to what it is to not be able to see. So, like, first and foremost, just like putting that language to it, because some people, again, like don't even realize it's happening. But not only is it first being aware that we're visionaries, but also like everything has a skill set and gaining competency with everything is part of our life's work. And gaining competency with being a visionary, something that all of us who are in this seat, I'll just talk on my pocket of the world and the people that I talk to have to get better about that because our gifts as seers are part of our genius and part of our brilliance and part of what makes us, you know, amazing at what we do. When it comes to business building, it can actually make it very difficult because we don't know how far out we're seeing. And exactly what you said, you'll see this thing like, oh,
The shiny thing.
it can be so difficult, not just because we can be distracted, but also genuinely, and I started learning this in my 20s. I was like that. I didn't even know what a visionary was until I had a mentor that said it as an aside. And I was like, oh, what's that? Oh, So like now I still do. It's like, how far out am I seeing? Sometimes I'll see patterns of like, sometimes I'm a year ahead. Okay, so like I've had to gain competency with being able to relax into that and exactly what you said. And I love the metaphor that you used. Let that stay in the background. But like that's not meant to get pushed to the display right now. Like that's not meant to come to the forefront. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know. Am I seeing 15 years out? Am I seeing 20 years out? Am I seeing, I don't know how far out this is. It can be so confusing for us who are visionaries when it comes to entrepreneurship because not only are we already wearing all the hats and trying to figure out things that work? But a lot of times, like, we don't really know how far out that vision is that we're seeing.
And that's, that a great case in point actually for me is that I can't remember when it was. I think it was 2021, late 2021. So actually shortly before I discovered human design, or it fell me, because that was early 22. It was then that I had the download that was my business framework, which is my heartfelt approach. It just arrived as information, and I was like, oh, and it's kind of come and gone over time. And it's only now that I'm seeing how powerful it's an acronym, how powerful that acronym is in the journey that I am now putting in front of people, because it's like it's always been there. It didn't really know where it fit at that point, but I knew that it was mine and I knew that I needed to claim it. It's so interesting.
I joke a lot in general, but on this podcast, I've said it so many times. But, my work and what I do, it's like working with a whole bunch of Merlins, people who do things backwards.
Yeah.
But I've really found that to be true in mine and similar to what you just said. And I see it over and over again with people I talk to, people who are clients of, I find that our pattern is more like us seeing end results
Mm-hmm.
and then trying to figure out how to work it backwards to the
Yeah.
starting point. I find that to be more often the case. Almost maybe every time we're actually seeing more of the North Star, we'll see the big vision. And so one way to describe what I do is help a whole bunch of Merlins like work that backwards effectively, like translate that, because as you know, and many of us know, like that longer term vision sometimes can be really far out. I mean, you've been an entrepreneur for a really long time. So it's like understanding how to work it backwards to match real market demand. So how do we do that effectively? And it's so real for so many of us. And again, because it's not talked about enough, I think it it's not just that it's confusing or can be emotionally hard or, some of these things that are absolutely there. There's a lot of, I call it reverse grief, because I worked with visionaries for so many years, even before I started doing this aspect of startup building. I worked with visionaries and started talking about reverse grief, what I started coining or calling reverse grief of what happens when, natural grief, or what we're all more talking about is you have something, you lose it, and there's a grieving process. But what happens when you're a visionary and you see visions and you don't know, they're not here yet. You don't know if you'll ever be able to get them. You don't know when they'll come. And I think a lot of us experience this type of grief constantly. And then, when we are in entrepreneurship, adding on, it can actually make it really hard to build the business because it's way simpler if you can't see very far ahead, because then it's more clear what the next step is. So already startup entrepreneurship is so hard because it's unclear, how do I navigate the startup phase? But then you layer on being a visionary, and then it's like it makes it really uniquely difficult.
Absolutely that. And also, the thing that I've experienced, and I know to be true for most manifested generators, and we're about a third of the population, is that we love a shortcut. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you find the shortcuts. Therefore, when we see over there, we're like, well, how can I just get there? And completely overwhelmed by taking a step and then letting the next step reveal itself. We can't see what that is. So it becomes like this big dilemma of, if I don't know what the next step is, how am I meant to get to the end again? Because we always want to get to the end. And it's just like, because you don't know that first bit, you just end up, as I call it, dancing around the indecision disco ball. It's just...
It's a perfect storm of making, what we're all doing uniquely difficult. It really, really is. It's because, like I already said, it's like already entrepreneurship is one of the most difficult things you can do. It is so difficult. Then you talk about, what we're all doing. We don't fit into a clear box. So one of the things I hear over and over and over and over again from people on this is the hardest thing for them is that there's such a lack of clear path. Like there's so much noise on like what to do and how to build. And like, there's just such a lacking there. So not already it's like that. It's so difficult. Then we're layering in all these things, like you said, all these, being a visionary and having these nuances of, manifesting generator and how to build as a manifesting generator, and perfect storm of making it really difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
When you think about your goals for the next 6 to 12 months, so you mentioned community, you mentioned focusing on one thing and letting that kind of anchor build, what do you think it's going to take for you to get there? Do you feel like you're guessing, or do you feel like you have a pretty good idea of what it's going to take for you to get to the next phases of what you see?
I feel like a lot of what I've been dancing around myself, and I'm always very honest about, like, this is where I'm at too. This is not like me going, oh, look, it's all over here. It's like, this is genuinely how it is. I see that some of what I have been missing for myself is I haven't fully been backing myself. I haven't 100% believed that what I am doing is possible, even though I've been told by very successful, I'm trying to think of the right word. They're really like authentic, really nice, powerful, but brilliant coaches, not people who are just trying to sell me stuff, people who are also friends of mine have said, your business has the potential to be this 6-figure business. And I'm like, I'll be honest, there are days when 4-figure business would be lovely. Thank you very much. And because of that back and forth, it's like, so why am I not there yet? So why am I not there yet? And it's actually like focusing on what's working and keep focusing on what's working and stop reminding myself of all the things that didn't work before, because we're often so good at looking back to what didn't that we completely overlook all of the stuff that's actually doing well right now.
Totally. I totally relate to what you just described. And so many of us do. And I hear people say their version of that over and over again. And it's why, I gave you a little bit of context for how I ended up doing what I'm doing. It's literally why, because I knew what was possible, not only because I could see what was possible, but similar to you, it's like I have people that I trust and believe who are grounded around me saying like, yes, this is possible. But no one was showing me how to get there.
Yeah.
No one was showing me how to get there. And classic Merlin, it's like, how do I work this backwards? There's a missing chunk. I could feel that. I could feel there's a missing chunk. There's like this missing piece because I can see what's possible. I know my potential and I can see what's possible. And of course, other people can. But like, what about that piece in the middle? What about where's the person that can help me navigate bridge that gap? And I hired and I kept trying to find that person. I never did. And that's how I ended up now doing it. Again, not because I was like, I'm going to be that person. I was just like, how do I find it? And then once I found it, then it was like, there's so few, if any. I haven't stumbled upon any people actually helping guide that part for people like us. And so as you say that, like, I get that. It's so real. There's also, I'm really big on talking about there's a time and place for working on mindset work and, working on ourselves. Someone that I had a conversation with last week on the podcast, so hers will come out a week before yours, had a brilliant metaphor about, seeing one of the breakdowns in our industry being that people are spending so much time working on like mindset work. It's like a chef constantly working on themselves and hyping themselves up, but never actually grabbing the ingredients to cook the thing.
Yeah.
So talking about that, but still so I'm a big believer in kind of like vocalizing that, because again, the work that I do, it's like, hey, you do need these 5 ingredients. I'm gonna help you find those 5 ingredients so then you can, go cook. But something that I want to acknowledge about what you said that I experienced is like, when you get in these patterns of things not working, does create something, right? For me, it's like, is it longing? Am I carrying a pattern of longing also that I'm just like expecting? I saw that in my dating life too. And I had an amazing mentor and coach who was like, there's been such a pattern of longing in your personal relationships. I could see why you match with this next person. They're just out of reach. It's kind of like, matching you to this longing. And, when you're saying that, it's like, there is this grief I already talked about, but there's like, I don't know, would you put a different word to it? For me, it's like I experienced a sense of longing for something. after so many years of not being able to, kind of see things come to fruition. I think especially as a projector,
Mm-hmm.
is there a different word that you would put toward that, like an emotion or?
I feel like it's almost self-trust based on the evidence that's actually in front of you. And when you struggle to get the evidence or see the evidence or recognize it, then you don't claim it. And when you don't claim it, then you don't take up the space that you're waiting to step into. So it wasn't one word, but
Yeah, totally. Well, yeah, self-trust. Yeah. I mean, it
yeah,
was. Yeah.
yeah.
No, I get that. I think it's like, you know, I've struggled with this so much, especially because when I started entrepreneurship, I was single. I'm not single anymore. I
Mm-hmm.
have a partner, I
Okay.
have a family, I have children, and I'm accountable to other
Mm.
people that I wasn't when I first started. I didn't care about being broke in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the money would come. I knew I would figure it out. Like I'm classic entrepreneur spirit, classic, devoted warrior to my path spirit. And then that changed and I had to be accountable in a different way. And some of those things took shape different going into my 30s, like what you're saying of, yeah, where's the evidence? Because it does look kind of delusional to an outside person.
Yeah.
Like I see that. And now I'm accountable to have conversations with my partner and answer. And entrepreneurship already is kind of crazy, but then I know what I see, but how do I say I know it's possible? But then it's like, where's the evidence? Like,
Yeah.
how can you show that? Like, where is the data? How can you ground that even though it's not here yet? And I totally get that. That was something, of course, now that it's a big part of how I work with people of like, we as visionaries, healers, practitioners, like the people that we are actually it actually works really well with the startup entrepreneurship phase and
Mm-hmm.
journey. We just haven't really been taught how to guide it, but it is about looking for different data points that at the beginning it's not going to be money. It's not going to be
Mm-hmm.
like a certain financial figure. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be, it's like understanding what are the data points though? Like how do we ground it to give ourselves data points so that we can navigate it, so that we can start building that back up, right? Like that
Yeah.
confidence and that
Yeah.
self-trust. Like we do. So many of us have taken a hit to our confidence. I think I told you that early on when we talked today. It's like I took such a hit in my confidence in my entrepreneurship journey. It was so confusing. And I had to and still have to continue to rebuild that trust, trusting my visions, trusting my seeing, trusting my intuition, but layering it in with the reality of building and doing it in a way that gives me some data points, that gives me something concrete to work off of. So I don't just feel like I'm this. One of my biggest insecurities has always been and still is being this ungrounded, naive entrepreneur that's constantly like, it's going to work.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone's around being like, that's some type of delusion that like we don't want to be part of. That's my biggest insecurity is being that naive entrepreneur that's going to keep going and pushing and investing and it's not working and try this next thing and it's real. It's a real reality.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? And like you say, it's almost giving ourselves, again, we're back to the permission piece, giving ourselves permission to have different metrics than what you might expect yourself to need. It isn't necessarily, ooh, I've grown my audience by 500. It might actually be, yay, I had one conversation with somebody who was interested in what I did, and focus on the fact that is a success and then build on that. Whereas I know that with me, I've had probably 3 years ago, I felt like I was starting to gain momentum. And then I started having conversations around doing it a bit more strategically. And I've gone like a balloon, expanding and then shrinking again. And then expanding and then shrinking again. And every time I've shrunk, I've gone, oh, and tried to learn a different thing and another way. And the more I tried to get strategic, the harder it became, actually, because none of it kind of married up and didn't really fit either with who I actually am. So it became then even more complicated. Yeah.
What you're talking about, this, it's classic. I mean, this is not, nothing that happened is unique. It's more just because people aren't supporting people through the startup process, it can
Mm.
feel like something's going wrong, but that's, it's really common to have early adopters. So it's really common to actually have early success. That can be a little bit of a red herring because it's like, oh, it was working, but now it's not. But usually what that is, it's just kind of like they call it early adopters. It's like the people that come in early, but then bridging beyond that is what people, this phrase is called a lot like crossing the chasm. I the way that I teach people how to build startups avoids that whole thing completely because it's actually incredibly difficult. And that's why that
Yeah.
95+% failure rate, they'll say
Mm.
the whole idea behind that is you have your early adopters, then you have like middle and late adopters, but you have this big chasm that you have to get from your early adopters to like the next thing. Well, that's actually the startup phase. So like navigating that,
Right.
but even that pattern, a lot of people will try a different tactic and it'll kind of move the needle a little bit, but it's not actually
Mm.
solving like those fundamental startup process things. And that's why then it dries up again. And then it can be more confusing. You can feel a little more, for me, it was like every time I tried something new, might have worked a little, but it didn't work sustainably. It wasn't like
Mhm.
actually laying the foundations. And then
Mhm.
often I would feel a little more confused. I would
Mhm.
certainly be a little more broke, a little more time poor.
Yeah.
And then sometimes even a little bit further off my path and being like, wait a second, I would hire someone and invest what at the time and still it's like, a few thousand. Sometimes I think I once invested like 6,000 in a coach and restructured my whole business. She said, if you do this type of workshop, if you focus on this aspect of your business, it's going to work. Okay, I'm a 2/4 projector, so I do have that too. I'm a natural. I can really get really good at different things. So that's also like a red herring for my human design that can be very hard because I
Mhm.
can pop into other things and be very good at them. So I remember I restructured my whole business, leaned into this one specific type. I'm certified, it's something I'm certified and qualified in. It didn't work, but then also
Mhm.
now I'm looking around. I finished she had me leading into holotropic breath work, which again, I'm trained, but like it's not what I do. It was never like what I did. So I like spent months restructuring everything, leaning
Mhm.
hard into this. Wasn't working. I also just didn't feel really aligned. So it was harder to
Yeah.
also push it. And then I was like, just kind of confused now
Mhm.
because I feel like less aligned and it didn't work and it's not working. And now it's like, now do I go backwards? Do I redo? I just like invested all that. Was it a waste of time? Was it a waste of money?
Yeah.
Like I'm just confused now. Again, I'm
Yeah.
certainly more broke,
Yeah.
more time poor, lost time,
Yeah.
lost money. Now I'm also a little confused and I'm like,
Yeah.
lost my alignment a little. I'm not really sure now. Like, where's my, yeah,
True
I
north.
totally get
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Mhm.
where's my true north? Last question that I'm going to ask before we wrap up today. If you could wave a magic wand and have one thing solved or fixed for you in your building process, what would that be?
I feel like it would be not so much a process, but a more organic effort way that I felt solid in and could rely on. People are going to come and people are going to book, and we're going to have the conversation, and it's going to pay off. And it's going to pay off for them. And I'm going to have the evidence of our work. And it's going to pay off for me. And I'm going to have loads of great stories to talk about because I have not a huge client base right now. And I'm available for more. That's never been the problem. And I think I would just love to see more naturally drawn to me people booking in, not so much trying to get people to book in, but them just going, oh, I really like the energy of this person. I need a conversation with them. And for that to be like the way that I've found myself drawn to other people, very similar, just for things to feel easier. That is really all I want.
Yeah, I totally get that. A simple, clear
Mm.
business model that is sustainable energetically, financially, emotionally. It works, right? Like you're building something simple and clear. You have the clarity around like what it is,
Mm.
and it works just like an engine. All the things start going and working, and yeah,
Mm.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining me today to have this conversation. And for those of you who are listening, if any part of this resonated, you're in the right place, please reach out. I want to hear from you. And if you want to reach Jacqueline directly, the link to get your personalized quantum blueprint is in the show notes. Thank you again, Jacqueline, and to everyone else, thank you for listening. And we'll see you for the next episode of Ren Behind the Practice.